Hi, my name is Pablo Guzman, and this is my final project for the class. So I chose to do just kind of a presentation style video. So here I go. So the concept that I chose for my final project is remembrance. In particular, I will talk about how the use of a comic strip medium by Spiegelman places constraints on how the reader interprets the events being recalled. I will contrast Spiegelman's work to Primo Levi's Survival in Auschwitz and Still Alive by Ruth Kluger to highlight the impact that style and form can have on the reader's ability to connect to the events being retold. Spiegelman's use of a comic strip as his medium of expression gives the reader the chance to be far more interactive with the text. The gutter, the space between panes, forces the reader to use their imagination to connect the events in the panes. Furthermore, the visual nature of a comic strip allows Spiegelman to play around with the text and images that he chooses, which allows him to easily convey emotions of the reader and leaves less room for interpretation. Lastly, comics as a medium of expression allow Spiegelman the ability to manipulate time, as is evident in several panes in Maus, in which the past and the present moments are merged in one pane, such as the very last scene, if you will, of Maus, where you see Artie's father dying, and then you see the tombstone. That kind of melding of time just shows the control that Spiegelman has. In this way, Spiegelman allows the reader to engage with the content and removes the freedom of interpretation, forcing the reader to remember the events as he desires. In contrast, Still Alive and Survival in Auschwitz are constrained by the orthodox, conventional text medium through which their stories are conveyed. Still Alive, while still expressed through the traditional text medium, is told in an unchronological fashion, as is evident just from the opening scenes of the book, where Kluger is with her family, as an adult, and then immediately jumps back to when she was a kid and starts retelling these stories. And this is kind of the entire progression of the book. Shows how Kluger uses a more natural thought progression when she's conveying her story. On one hand, this allows the reader to more easily relate to Kluger's experiences, as the reader can use their own personal experiences to manifest their thoughts to parallel Kluger's. However, this lack of chronology also makes it difficult at times for the reader to gain their bearing in the story. Thus, Kluger forces the reader to think as she thinks and as she experiences her events, but she also allows the freedom to piece together the events that she is retelling. This is kind of in contrast again to Maus, where there is that interactivity, but the text medium gives a little bit less, gives us a little bit more freedom for interpretation as opposed to the visual nature of the comic strip, as I mentioned earlier. And lastly, of the three books, Levi's Survival in Auschwitz presents a more like normalized retelling of his story in terms of medium through his use of a chronologically organized text medium. Again, this is evident in Levi's book from the beginning as well, where he starts being captured by the militia when he's a part of that, and then he immediately goes to when he's in the camps and things like that. It's just a very not logical thought, a storyline, if you will. As such, Levi provides the reader with the least amount of freedom to interpret and the least amount of the ability to connect to his experiences, in my opinion, just because a linear fashion is it just flows on itself. So the reader really doesn't have to engage much to try and figure out what is going on or what Levi's trying to tell. It just is kind of set out for the reader. So this, again, the chronological nature of his story traps the reader in the time in which the events occurred. So the reader is not, again, required to engage as much, nor are they required to piece together the story, like in Maus, especially in Still Alive, where those two mediums and the forms through which the stories are told and the thought processes give the reader varying degrees of ability to interpret what events are occurring. So thank you for listening to my presentation, and just give this Quick shout out to Professor Richards just for helping us throughout the semester succeed, even though the circumstances were not ideal. So thank you, and hope you guys stay safe.